Hi, it's TJ here. Welcome back to the Warp 9 YouTube channel. I've got another video for you today, and that is there a DevOps shortage? Short answer to this is yes, there is. And let's break down why there is a skill shortage. So one of the big things I've seen in this article is they're complaining about there's not enough staff for the jobs. And this is very true, and is a point of all the people I thought to talk about this isn't related to technology. In fact, it's Gary V, or you may know him as Gary Vaynerchuk. He's the one who gave the best insight, I think, as to why there is a skill shortage. Now, if we look at it from a business perspective, what does every business want to do? Increase profit and decrease cost. Now, I remember way back when I was getting into DevOps, and I'll have to see if I can find the article with this figure, but it was something along the lines of there is a 27,000, that's right, 27,000% increase in software delivery. So from the idea to end product being 27,000% faster than the old traditional ways of waterfall development. Any business not doing that would be seen as crazy. I mean, imagine that, the amount of time you're saving on that, the cost, the staff, the building. You can pump out software and update so much faster. So I think that's really where the DevOps demand really came in, because it was using DevOps practices and moving over from waterfall development to agile that really caused this huge demand. So a lot of startups started doing it, and then bigger organizations started as well. I think they caught onto it, especially the consultancies. They can now offer it. And there's a bit of a meme I've seen on a few of the consulting subreddits where you see about Deloitte and Agile and how they complicate it so far. It's one of those things that it's caused this huge demand. Now, coming back, what did Gary V say that nailed why we have this huge shortage of engineers? And it was really simple. Companies don't want to train up their engineers. There's a lot of poaching. So you see someone who's already put the time and invested into training someone, and they'll come along and say, we'll offer you £5,000, £10,000 more. Come work for us. Now, let's be honest here. As engineers, that's fantastic, right? We go along, we fancy a new job. We say, hey, I'm a DevOps engineer. Get a huge pay rise. You keep jumping around companies. Some people do like that, right? They want to go for the salary. They want to keep earning more and more and more. And the best way to do that is to keep jumping around from different companies. Some people are the opposite. They prefer stability. So they want to just work somewhere for maybe 4 or 5 years, get a steady paycheck. It's completely up to you which approach you want to take. But here comes the big thing. As a DevOps engineer, you can get inundated with offers. I was talking to one of my colleagues, and he got nearly 20 phone calls in a day. And this is kind of at peak season around January when everyone's come back, there's new budgets, and like I said, the phones are off the hook. And recruiters can sometimes pull some really quite clever tricks to get hold of your phone number. I think in their case, they went through the corporate directory, called up reception, somehow found his internal number that then linked to his company mobile and called him back. And there's other stories I've heard of recruiters going through PRs on GitHub repos to try and find contact details to actually get in touch with people. So it's absolutely wild. I mean, there is a huge demand, but then there's a lack of training is why you're not getting the engineers in the first place. So I'd say one of two things to the business. One, if you want to train up your staff and you want to do it fast, check out the description below for my training website, warp-9.com, where you can train up your staff incredibly fast and it'll be up to speed in no time at all. The second thing you can do is lower the barrier to entry. People want the best of the best. You want your pound of flesh. But the truth is, getting that is going to cost. And unless you're Google, then it's going to be really hard to try and attract that sort of talent. But on the other hand, if you have someone who's really passionate, wants to come in, wants to learn, take a chance on them. There's a higher likelihood that they're going to deliver, maybe not as well, but they're going to be bloody good at what they do. So instead of saying you want someone with 5 years Kubernetes experience, which is pretty much from day zero because it started in 2015, maybe if you say you want someone with 6 months to a year's experience to come in to fill a lower end of a mid-level role, if you start looking at what they actually need to do, you'll probably find the requirement isn't that high. So again, you also want to get the technical person on board instead of HR when it comes to looking at the job description. Because again, if they're not setting up production clusters all day and instead are actually helping developers create YAML files, then it makes sense that you don't need someone with 5 years experience working with production clusters if all they're going to be doing is writing YAML files. And now if you're looking at this from the perspective of an engineer who wants to get into the industry, again, I'm going to recommend check out my training courses, get trained up really fast, and also start having a go at applying for these jobs. You'll be surprised. And if you've gone through my video of how I got into DevOps, in my story, it was a bit of a leap of faith. The company took a chance on me and said, look, This engineer is passionate, wants to learn, wants to get in the industry. He's certified as well. They took a chance on me and it worked out really well for both of us. And I think we're going to start seeing more and more companies doing this. You hear some of these places, they're looking for 5 to 10 years DevOps experience, which may or may not even exist. And then they want to pay you £30,000 a year. It's not going to happen. As we start to see this normalization now, as more and more people start to get trained, we start meeting supply and demand. Yes, some things might start to get a little bit rough, but now is a fantastic time to start, get trained, get in the industry, because again, it's also a little bit Wild West. And what I mean by this is, if you start looking at jobs now, where you start looking at system administrator roles, and you start seeing CCNA, CCIE, CCNP, MCSA, MCSE, all these certifications, DevOps is the opposite right now. There aren't many certifications. More of them are coming out, so you can get Docker certified, which, because Docker's only used a small amount, it's one of those, is it worth getting, is it not? Really depends on the case. There's a new Terraform certification that looks great. I've taken it and I think it's pretty awesome. And it looks like it could be in very high demand very soon. AWS Certified Solutions Architect, I recommend as an absolute must for every DevOps engineer. Now, if you're working with Azure, find the equivalent. But for AWS, that is like the gold standard. You should have that. But here comes the other thing. We've mentioned about these certifications. And if we actually looked at what I've just said there, AWS and maybe Terraform if you use it. You don't need to then learn all these other technologies. You're not working with Cisco. You're not working with Microsoft Server. You may be, you may not be. But the demand for certifications is pretty much zero. It's based on experience. And again, I reckon probably the next 2 to 3 years, we'll start seeing demand for certifications. They'll be saying, senior DevOps engineer, we expect you to have certified Kubernetes administrator. And for solutions architects, we expect you to have AWS solutions architect professional. But right now, as I'm filming this, in 2020, during the COVID pandemic, yes, certifications can help and give you an edge, but right now it's very much an experience game. Even doing things at home, I still consider it experience. You might want to twist that when you speak with your employer, and look, this is one of those grey area things. You might want to say, I have done this stuff, and you could tell them honestly, I've done this at home. And if they can start gauging that, okay, you have actually set up a Kubernetes cluster, you have gone ahead and deployed pods, rather than going in there like a stranger to all these words you start hearing, the fact you have some experience is going to help you immensely. So it's a fantastic time to start looking now. There is a demand, a huge demand, because there is a shortage of engineers. So now's the best time ever to get into DevOps. I hope you've enjoyed this video and I hope you've learned something useful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.